Hey, Michelle.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Excellent.
All set.
Excellent.
Good afternoon.
Hello. How you doing, Mitzi?
Well, so. Glad I got the time right.
Oh, good. We are too.
Mitzi, I'm going to introduce myself, Derrick, and I'm going to agree with you. I'm so glad I got the time right. Gave me a lot of consternation trying to figure it all out last night. So
I've
I'm
written it
just glad
down.
that it helps that
in
there's
a
not a
million
lot of time,
places.
in between each thing. That helps. So I don't have too much time to mess it up.
And even less if I'm chairing the session before. Haha.
Ah, hi, Angela.
Hey, Angela.
I want a can of that moon spec, Angela. You're muted.
You'll have to visit me in San Antonio because I'm not posting it.
Okay. Yep. On my next flight to Washington, D.C. on Southwest, which will definitely come through San Antonio just to get to D.C. from Philly.
No, Derrick, you can always come a little bit north and join Tyler and I in the Finger Lakes for some of their Eclipse theme wine.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah.
You can come to Southern Illinois. There's a whole winery region in that area, and a lot of them did Eclipse events in
I think
2017.
I'm going to have to make up a whole like tour schedule here.
I
You know?
mean, the door is always wide open to you in Illinois. So come
Well,
on.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As long as there's wine involved, I'm there.
Galileo.
You get the wine, I get the beer.
You can be known for one thing from now on, Derrick. There's a wine tasting. Invite
I-
Derrick to give
I
a talk.
really-
He'll be known for two things: the tent and the wine. So
Tent under which I drank wine. There we go.
there you go.
Well, I clearly know what event I need to add to the AAS workshop schedule this fall.
Right.
All right, everyone, we'll get started in just a minute. And Angela, are things ready on your end? Unless she stepped away for a second. There she is. You're muted.
Sorry, I don't have slides for you guys.
Oh, I've got them.
Okay, good.
got 'em.
Then
It's all
I
good.
think all is good.
Yeah, we're
And
gonna
all is well for production in the background. So
Excellent. Oh, hello, Pamela.
hello,
Yeah, we're
Michelle.
going. I'm doing great. We're going to. I believe we're gonna each share screens if we need to do that. So as
All
long as
set.
we have co-host capabilities, we're all good. So all right, it is 2:26 or 3:26 or wherever you are. It's something 26. So welcome to our final breakout session of the workshop. This has been just inspiring and a lot of fun, and I've written down many notes, and I've sent Slack messages off to my colleagues saying, don't worry about this right now. I'm on a workshop. It's about the eclipse. I'm just getting ideas. And so it's been a lot of fun learning from all of you the last couple days, as it always is. Just as a quick reminder for those who might leave us before the end of the session. There is a gather session at 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, the next hour, whatever the top of the hour is after our session is done. And so networking and poster sessions. So definitely join us for that. I'll have the slide up at the end about how to join that. And also as a quick reminder, and I'll have this up at the end, there is another workshop coming up in Rochester. Thank you to our Rochester friends for hosting for us. That's coming up in October. I've already got the dates on my calendar, so I can't wait to see you all in person. So Dan, we're all going to come invade, and we're all a lot of fun. So
We're excited to have you here.
well, I'll put that up at the end. All right, so let me get to where my slides are. So give me just a second here. All right. You have joined the museum's Planetarium Science Center's breakout session. This will not be us just talking at you the entire time, as all the rest of the breakout sessions have done. We'll tell you a little bit about what we did in 2017, maybe a little bit also about what we might change in 2023 or 2024, what worked well, what didn't work out quite so well, because we don't want to reinvent the bad wheels. But then we'll leave time at the end as well if you want to shoot ideas our way, if you want to share what worked for you. This is always a great time. We don't get nearly enough time to share together. So this is a great opportunity for that. And all right, let me get to our agenda. So welcome. We'll introduce the panelists in just a second. Everyone will just take a minute and introduce themselves. If you don't know our esteemed colleagues, you will. And we'll go over our 2017 Eclipse activities. There'll be questions, answers, discussion. As always, if you think of something, throw it in the chat. And then after that, go forth in Eclipse and get ready for 2023 and 2024. It's never too early. So. All right, introduction. Whoops. My name is Michelle Nichols. I'm going to stop sharing for just a sec so everyone else can see our panelists as well. My name is Michelle Nichols. I'm the Director of Public Observing at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago. I'm in charge of all of the Adler's telescope and sky observing initiatives. I run our observatory with our telescope, our 24-inch telescope that we just installed about a month and a half before the pandemic started. So we are looking forward to more opportunities for using that, but we're already getting ideas in motion for what to do for the next couple eclipses in terms of getting eyeballs up to telescopes. So Derrick, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Derrick Pitts. I'm the Chief Astronomer and Planetarium Programs Director at Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. Michelle and I do a lot of the same kind of work. With telescopes and getting eyeballs to telescopes and things like that. I also do a bunch of community outreach work and enticing people to do telescope stuff, mostly by creating programs that take telescopes out into the community and engage the audiences right where they are. So there's a big mix of stuff that I do around that, and I think many of you know about that. Thanks.
And the best part about a science center, museum, or planetarium job is you often invent the job yourself based on the fun stuff that you want to do out in the community. So there you go. That's a plug for our way of doing stuff. All right, Allyson, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I'm Allyson Bieryla. I'm at the Center for Astrophysics, Harvard Smithsonian. I actually have two different roles. So on the Harvard side, I manage our telescopes and astronomy lab that we use for undergraduate teaching and develop new labs and work with students and all kinds of stuff, all the fun stuff like that. And then on the Smithsonian side, I get to do a little bit of research, and I focus on exoplanet follow-up, a lot of test stuff if you're into exoplanets right now.
I think everybody should be into exoplanets right now. So. And congrats to the community for finding over 5,000 exoplanets so far, just crossed that threshold. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Dr. Mitzi Adams from NASA. Hi, Mitzi.
Hello, everybody. I actually am the assistant manager of the Heliophysics and Planetary Science Group here at Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. And across the street from our offices, which are actually on the campus of the University of Alabama in Huntsville, is the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, which houses the Intuitive Planetarium. And Michelle and I kind of have a link through the Fernbank Science Center, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. When I was in high school, I was an observatory assistant there. And one of the first astronomers for Fernbank Science Center in Atlanta was Dr. Paul Knappenberger, who eventually became the president of Adler Planetarium and is now retired and happy. Happier? I think he was happy at Adler also. So I try to do a lot of outreach as well. I work with the Von Braun Astronomical Society here in Huntsville, and basically try to take telescopes to wherever I can. For example, we have an event coming up at the Early Works Children's Museum in May, and we're going to talk about the astronomy of Harry Potter. We're going to have solar telescopes, and of course, I'll be telling everybody about the eclipse, which will be partial here in Huntsville, but that's okay. If people want to, they can drive up to Kentucky and see a total eclipse again.
Thank you so much. So what we're going to do is now go around the panel and each talk about what we did in 2017. I'll start first, and then I'll pass it on to Derrick. And so, yeah, let me get started. Let me share my screen. So give me just a second again. Let me grab my presentation. All right. I'm usually not a giant fan of putting lots of words on screens, but what I want to, and I know this recording will be available later, I'm not going to read off everything on our screen. I want you to pay attention to the very last line as the Adler Planetarium's goal for the last eclipse, which will be the goal for the next two eclipses. Bring Chicago together to view the sky together. That's basically what describes our public observing program in a nutshell. Eyeballs up to telescopes, eyes to the skies. And so anything we can do to get people interested in that, sidewalk astronomy, working with partners, bringing people to the Adler, there's a lot of stuff that can be done that way. And make sure, there we go. All right, so we worked a lot with our Southern Illinois University Carbondale friends. They put on a 5-hour live stage show. The Adler had a tent outside of Saluki Stadium, and we tried to help our SIU partners as much as we could before, during, and after the eclipse. It was an amazing opportunity to be amongst 15,000 of our closest friends who all were there to look up at the sky together. They could have gone anywhere, and they decided to all centralize themselves on the campus of SIU Carbondale. And by the way, the big white sheets that you see on in the picture here, the Girl Scouts laid out those sheets, and so we were looking for shadow bands, which we saw right after the eclipse, and I was not expecting to see them at all, and they were spectacular. So do not underestimate looking for shadow bands if you are really close to the path, or you are on the path and you get that little sliver of sun right before or after the eclipse. I'd say shoot for after, because you want everyone excited right before, but look for them just after. Don't underestimate that little exercise. The Adler Planetarium had a theme. We called it Equipped to Eclipse. And we gave people online some very simple examples of how to view the eclipse. Not every way under the sun, pun intended, to be able to see it, but easy, inexpensive ways to do it using stuff from around your house. Simple information about the eclipse, one page, digestible. Try to keep your messaging as clean as possible. We learned that very early on. We do not have to give people every single way to view an eclipse. Just give them the ways that they may be able to access best. The thing that I think we really hit best on is we had a temporary exhibit up. We called it Chasing Eclipses, and it was up from March 2017 to January 2018. And the reason I say we hit on this really well, and and you can see some pictures that we have here. We had a community design lab as part of it. We had items from our historical collection. We told people what eclipse chasing was about, how people have done it in the past, how the technology people used in the past and currently. The reason I say we hit on this so well is because we had essentially a backdrop in the museum where we could get media to come as early as March 2017 to start to do news stories about the eclipse. I heard so many times during 2017, oh, we didn't get the media interested until about 2 weeks prior to the eclipse. And that's true, unless you have something visual for them to grasp onto. So it doesn't have to be fancy designed like this. It could be a case, it could be a wall hanging, it could be something on the floor, whatever you've got. Give them a visual backdrop where they can stick their cameras in front of it and use it to do a little story about the eclipse. Do not underestimate that power, and you may get their attention a lot sooner. We had an effort called the Big Glasses marketing campaign. What I really wanted to do was make these working eclipse glasses, but we didn't have time to figure out how to do that. But still, these were eclipse looking glasses, and they went around to different community partners around the Chicago area. They spent a few days at each location. We had an orange one, a red one, and a turquoise one, not pictured here. It was a 5-figure expense. We still have them in storage. We can rebrand them for 2023 and 2024. So these provided that Instagram moment, that selfie taking moment, that Facebook sharing moment, that Twitter moment that people could go around. And if they happen to be wandering by, I mean, these things just scream, please take a picture of me and share it. We did outreach to Southern Illinois. So we have our localized outreach in the Chicago area called Scopes in the City, but we also have Astro Road Trip, where we go to Southern Illinois and help out our partners down there. These are the students at Century School in Ullen, Illinois, which is south of Carbondale. And you got to admit, there's nothing better than taking a picture of 100 kids all with solar glasses on. We had Eclipse Fest at the Adler. Food trucks, partner organizations, bounce castles, science activities, 12 solar filtered telescopes doing image projection, which for a crowd that size is key because it's going to take time for people to get eyeballs up to telescopes. If you project the image, or if you have a way for groups to gather to see an image, that is ideal because you will always have more people than you expect. We gave out 30,000 pairs of solar glasses that started at 9 in the morning. That day, people stood in line starting at 3 o'clock in the morning to get those glasses, and the line stretched for a mile when we started giving them out at 9. These are more pictures. There were just people everywhere at the Adler. And here's some of those solar projections going on. And as you can see, it did the trick. You could see the eclipse up in the clouds, but just about everybody standing in front of that projection has a camera. And so we really hit well on that solar projection. There's nothing better. You know you have a great event when sand people are wearing eclipse glasses, especially yours. Just crowds, an extremely diverse crowd. And people were everywhere. How many people? 60,000 people came to the Adler Planetarium and the grounds around the planetarium. What you can see, I think you can see my mouse, over here in the distance, that's Soldier Field. That's where the Chicago Bears play. And we had as many people on the campus as the Bears get for a game. And so we thought that was a pretty significant number. And this is the view from the air. And you can see there are just all those little tiny ant looking things are people, and just sitting out wherever they could find space. And what you can't really see is all the boats that were also out in Lake Michigan that day of people enjoying the eclipse from the water. We had our Far Horizons high altitude ballooning program. This is just a still shot as they were getting the, this is a still shot from a 3D movie they were able to put together. And so this is, sorry, a 360 movie. So this is the approaching eclipse shadow. getting ready for 2023 and 2024. We're going to be about 3 hours away from the path of totality instead of about 5 hours, which is what we were for 2017. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be about 94% coverage at the Adler. All right. Last thing, what did we hit on? The eclipses, the glasses, being available to the media on short notice. We added it all up and we got 1.5 billion worldwide media impressions for the Adler, equivalent to $4 million if we had to purchase all that media time that we had gotten ourselves. And it has resulted in connections that we still have today. We utilized for a nonprofit community partners. We had a very photogenic marketing campaign, had our Eclipse Fest. We still do outreach to Southern Illinois. What would we do better? Can't have enough glasses. We want to do more to help people learn how to view the eclipse themselves, how they can share glasses, how they can learn to see an image of the sun without glasses. Everybody thinks you have to have glasses. You do not have to have glasses. And so never underestimate the power of an in-person event, especially in locations off the path. We want to start contact with our potential partners sooner. And never underestimate the public's desire for merch. I know Tyler's on here on the session, so get in touch with him if you want to get some awesome designs for your merch. And what we really also want to do is increase the number of satellite sites that are handling the crowds. We actually don't want 60,000 people to show up on April 8th, 2024. That really taxed us. We thought about 8,000 would come. And when we saw the weather forecast, we thought, yeah, maybe 8, 10. Somebody said 20 and we laughed. They got 60. And so we did our jobs a little too well. And I know it's been said, not everyone can afford to travel. Not everyone can take the day off. Do not make people feel bad if they can't travel to the path. Do not just hit home traveling to the path. Most people will see this eclipse not on the path. Help them appreciate the sky where they are. Help them feel like a worldwide community. Give them opportunities to see the totality via a video, a connection, internet movie, it's YouTube, whatever. I won't go over all this. These were all the community partners that we used. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people involved. So, Derrick, would you like to talk about what you did in 2017?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. And there we go. And basically, what she said. Thank you very much. No, I'm only kidding. So what we did at Franklin Institute, we had a number of different directions in which we were moving with our programming. For that particular year, we had really, really great community connections into community-based organizations. So what I'm going to do with my presentation here is I'm going to focus really on two things, specifically what we did in terms of the audiences that we were reaching, specific audiences that we were reaching, what we did right on our location, and also some of the tools that we used and what we'll do differently next time around. A lot of the same setup that Michelle talked about is the same setup that we used for trying to build audience for this. And really what we had that worked really well for us is our connection with community-based organizations. Because of the kind of outreach that Franklin has been doing in the recent past, we have really, really great connections with these community-based organizations. So what we did was we used that network throughout the city that was the local community organizations plus libraries plus all the other sort of community organizations that we could figure out that we were already connected with. We pushed awareness of the eclipse out through them and used that as a major way to reach out to audiences in an effort to get them to realize and understand that they can do solar eclipse observing right where they are. We realized that we wanted to do that because we wanted to reduce the number of people that might come to the Franklin Institute. We have an observatory on the roof, but we also knew that there was no way we were going to be able to squeeze more than 100 people into that room at a time. And we knew that we would be attracting thousands of people to come. So as you look at the image that you see here, the image itself is a photograph taken from the Franklin Institute looking at a park that's just adjacent to us. So it just shows a small portion of the amount of audience that we had for this. We had about 8,000 people or so show up. You know, our folks inside the building figured that maybe 2,000 people would show up. I'm sorry, it was really more like 10,000, not 8,000, but 10,000 people showed up. So the museum itself wasn't really prepared for that number of people that would want to engage with an event like this. But my crew was much more aware of what the possibilities would be for people attending. So what we did on site was we had half a dozen Schmidt-Cassegrain instruments set up. We had another half dozen smaller telescopes set up. We had, let me see, 3 dozen sun spotters we happened to have on hand. We had those set up for people to use. These smaller refractor telescopes had sun funnels on them, and we did both projection and direct filtered observing through the Schmidt-Cassegrain instruments, and that all worked out really well. But also with the understanding that we were going to have a tremendous number of people, we did this solar tent thing, and you can see that in the image right here. And it's really basic and straightforward. We just used some Thousand Oaks optical black polymer film and stretched it over the canopy frame and did that, so that would allow us to have this experience for a group of people to be able to observe at one time. So that worked out really well. Here's what that looked like from underneath. People could look up through this and a group of people could see at one time. So it really lent itself to a group experience. The text that you see on the screens relates to a different session that I was in a little bit earlier about how to connect with these community organizations. And that worked out really, really well for us, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. So we had the community connection that worked really well for us because we had our tentacles out there already. We did the on-site stuff, which worked out really well for us. We had distributed probably 8,000 solar viewers through our community organizations in the months prior to the eclipse. And so that acted as promotion for us, and that worked out really, really well. But we also have very good connections with our media in Philadelphia. So between the radio programs that I do and the TV stuff that happens all the time, we had that pretty well covered. What are we going to do better for next time, or what will we do differently for next time? We'll be prepared for more people next time because we realize that people want to come to experience this as a group at the institution that they know can provide the best experience for them to the best experience for them around the eclipse event. And the one thing that will really be different this time is getting our museum administration to understand that they need to provide the resources to engage with this audience and this entire event years beforehand. For 2017, I worked for 2 years to get the administration to realize that this was going to be a big event in 2017. And I couldn't get the administration to buy into this until like 4 months before the eclipse. And so when I implored them to purchase solar eclipse glasses to sell, they dragged their feet until the last like 6 weeks and then couldn't get very many, which was really awful. But I had, made arrangements for solar eclipse viewers years beforehand so that I had them for community distribution. So that's the big major thing that we'll do differently, along with a lot of the other stuff that Michelle is mentioning. We're all going along the same lines with that. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Derrick. And yeah, I should say that it sounds like the Adler was, oh yeah, we got everybody on board right from the beginning. Now it took a while to be able to do it, and there was some stuff that we weren't able to do till the last minute either. So yeah, it's never you can never plan too early. So excellent. Thank you. All right, Allyson, I believe you're next, if I'm not mistaken. You ready?
Sounds good.
All right, go for it.
I will share my screen. And hopefully I'll make it through this presentation without my dog jumping on my lap. We just had a storm here and he's a little nervous. Okay, so I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about some of the work that we've done on building this device called Light Sound. We developed it as a tool for blind and visually impaired or low vision individuals in an attempt to make solar eclipses a little more accessible. So essentially, a light sound is a sonification device, so it converts light to sound based on the brightness of the sound. So on the right here, there's an image of the light sound. The device itself is about the size of a cell phone, like a smartphone. And you see it here on a tripod, a bendable tripod, and attached to some headphones. And I'll just briefly show you a schematic on the left here and kind of go over kind of the innards of it. So you just have some idea of what's happening, but you don't see it here, but under this black tape, there's a light sensor, and this is like a key component. So it's this very high dynamic range light sensor. And it basically, we needed it to be okay in bright sunlight, you know, when the eclipse starts. And then of course, like when we get into totality, something, you know, about the brightness of a full moon. So it's a very high dynamic range. So this light sensor checks those boxes. And then here in the middle, we have this microcontroller board, which basically has a single program on it that maps the brightness of the light to a sound and outputs it. And for those of you that are musicians, you might have heard of a MIDI synthesizer. This is kind of what makes the eclipse a little more pleasant. We can kind of assign some different instruments to the sound or to the light, because it's such a high dynamic range. Using one instrument kind of doesn't really get you the full range. So we use like a flute for the high pitch and then a clarinet in the mid range. All of this is open source, so you can kind of make edits and changes to your liking. We also have instructions in both English and Spanish. They're very detailed, so that was key part of the program. We wanted to make this all open source. But just two quick more things about the schematic. There's a micro USB port, so you can attach this to a computer, which then could power the device. It also will allow you to collect data, so you can sonify it later or play with the data and do some data analysis. But of course, you can also run this off a 9-volt battery if you wanted to have it separate from a computer. You don't need a computer to run this. And finally, the audio output, you can either attach headphones and have it be your individual device, or many events attached it to a large speaker, and then made the event more accessible to many people at once. So I wanted to kind of give you, hopefully the sound will come across, an idea of what it sounds like. So this is the same device, but it's in a 3D printed case. So our collaborators in South America actually 3D printed their own cases, but the insides are the same. So when it starts, this is kind of like a sped up version of what you might expect over the entire eclipse. You know, you have the bright light, so that flute sound, and then it starts to dim, it gets lower in pitch. And then when it gets to the lowest sound, it'll be like almost like a clicking sound. So let's see if this works. You hear that? There's that clicking, and it actually gets separated as we get slow to the dimmest part. And then we're back to the flute sound. So this was originally designed with the 2017 eclipse in mind. So the image on the bottom left is actually the prototype that we used in 2017. The newer version that I kind of went through the schematic has the MIDI synthesizer. This one didn't. This one had a different light sensor, which wasn't quite as a high dynamic range. This one actually saturated in the brightest of light. So this whole idea kind of came about with a good friend and collaborator, Wanda Diaz-Merced, who's in the top right of this image. She's a blind astronomer from Puerto Rico. And she was going to be in South America teaching her students. And, you know, not just in the US were people excited about this event. It got international excitement. And so her students really wanted to be a part of this. So we're talking about how to make that maybe possible. And we came up with this device, and with the help of a colleague, Daniel Davis, he helped us, design this and put it together. So I was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I had one of these devices, and I was able to stream the sound on the internet, where Wanda and her students and others around the world can kind of log in and join in the excitement. So it's just a picture of that. And then we had two other devices in Kentucky where we were mostly trying to make sure we can collect the data. And that's what is shown on the right here. So this is a light curve. So the brightness on the y-axis here, and then along here is the time. So you'll see it kind of saturated at the brightest part, but then when we get into eclipse, it dimmed. And like I said, the newer version actually doesn't saturate in the same way that this one did. So proof of concept, it worked. So we were really excited. And so we started to collaborate with some colleagues in Chile and Argentina. And we got a grant from the International Astronomical Union to build 20 of these new version devices that I was showing at the beginning, and distribute them across Chile and Argentina. And my big takeaway from this was just like how one device at an event could really impact thousands of people. All these devices had, were at various 20 devices at various events. We impacted tens of thousands of people. And I love this, I love both of these images, because the one on the right is just, a young child holding the device and kind of taking charge of their own observations. But on the left here is an image of La Portada Stadium in La Serena, Chile. And you might not be able to see from this picture, but there's a light sound device on the table here. And then the bottom right, it's attached to this massive speaker. And so just this one device, attached to that speaker makes it a different experience for some of these individuals. So you can really go a long way with just one device. And so then in 2020, they come in pairs, as we all know. There's another one in Chile and Argentina, and our Chilean colleagues got an additional grant from ESO, and were able to build over 100 more devices. Now, this was at the height of the pandemic, of course, so things were a little different, but it was summertime, so people were still getting out, and even if it wasn't big events, there were definitely smaller events and outdoor events, and it was just a great success. And I don't think I've mentioned yet, but these devices cost about $60 to build, so it's a very low cost to have one at your event to make a big change. And another kind of proof of concept is we had a group from Malaysia reach out when they had an annular eclipse back in 2019, and they were using our instructions to kind of build these on their own. And so it was really nice to see that was possible, and a group without any help from us was able to kind of complete this and do this on their own. And you can see in this picture, there's a light sound device here again, and it's just attached to a speaker. So thinking ahead, of course, to 2023, 2024, we want to keep building on this momentum and just, hundreds of devices. But we're only a few people working on this. So it's, we need partnerships and collaborations. We would love to collaborate with groups and organizations to kind of build these devices. We've developed workshops where we teach folks how to do this, and we want to be able to donate them to communities in need and events that want to, ensure that this kind of work is being done. So we ran our first workshop back in 2020 in Hawaii at the American Astronomical Society meeting right before the pandemic. And then we had this lull because things haven't been in person, but we're running another one in June of the summer at the AAS. And really it's this chance to teach individuals and participants how to build these devices and how to use them, and how you can put them in use, even beyond just the solar eclipse. Even though this was designed for that, you can certainly use this in a classroom or outreach events. And so, and individuals don't need solder skills, all that stuff. We teach you, we have the tools. It's just, a one-day kind of event. We can build and do this. So we want to go beyond just the AAS. We'd like to, partner with museums, national parks, libraries, whoever's holding these events. And really, to make this really work, we'd love to train folks to then train other folks to keep the momentum going. So I just want to, here's all this, the QR codes and the websites, whatever you like, take a picture, use your phone. everything's online in terms of there's open source code. There's, documentation on how to build these. Of course, reach out to us. Soleil Hyman is also mentioned here. She's a graduate student at the University of Arizona. She started working on this project as an undergrad at Harvard and has done a lot of work on the coding and redesign from prototype to new version. And I know I'm at the end here, I'll just say real quick, we have a second device called Orchestar. It's a color, it has a color chip. So it basically sonifies based on color. So red light is lower, I'll just show here, and blue light is a higher pitch. One of the cool things it can do is if you turn the LED switch on, it can reflect light off of a poster, like in this image on the left here. So if you're like imaging a color map, you can kind of tell if it's blue or red or whatever. So thank you. I'm happy to take questions at the end, but please reach out if any of this sounds like something you'd like to incorporate in your events.
Oh my goodness, Allyson, that is just fabulous. Holy cow. And just as a possibility, the American Geophysical Union fall meeting is going to be in Chicago in December. So might be a great opportunity for a workshop or something going on externally from the conference. So really neat. And thank you. That was great. All right, Mitzi, you ready?
Allyson, you will be hearing from me.
Yeah, I've already put on my list of things to do. You're going to hear from me too.
Well, let me see if I can share my
sorry, there's
screen.
one last thing I wanted to mention. I remembered. It is so great to remember that this is also great, that sonification is great for people who can see as well, because the light levels decrease so slowly and your eyes adjust. You don't realize how dark it is until the last minute. So it can help everybody who wants to enjoy the eclipse with all their senses. So
that's a perfect point to make. Absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, Mitzi, please.
So what we did, are you seeing, let's see, you see it, yay, okay, fantastic. It works a little bit differently than Teams, which I've gotten used to. Okay, so let's see, I'm just gonna run through the Inspire journal, which pretty well documents what we did for the 2017 eclipse. There are a lot of articles in this particular publication. I invite you all to take a look at it. It's online. It's free to read online. And it is a publication of the Inspire project. And I'm just going to read you the mission. It's a nonprofit scientific educational corporation whose objective is to bring the excitement of observing natural and man-made radio waves in the audio region to high school students. Underlying the objective is the conviction that science and technology are the underpinnings of our modern society, and that only with an understanding of science and technology can people make correct decisions in their lives, public, professional, and private. Stimulating students to learn and understand science and technology is a key to them fulfilling their potentials in the best interests of our society. Inspire also is an innovative, unique opportunity for students to actively gather data that might be used in a basic research project. So the Inspire project was co-founded by Dr. Bill Taylor and Dr. Bill Pine. And they started this project with this Inspire kit that one can build and still order and listen to natural sounds from our planet and from beyond. And this particular organization has expanded a bit from the initial, let's just build a kit and listen to VLF radio sounds. They also include training teachers and taking students from the DC area to space camp at the US Space and Rocket Center. And they sponsor these scholarships for these students to come every year, pre-COVID, of course. And they also sponsor scholarships for teachers to come, and then the teachers teach. So this edition focused on the eclipse, and you can see the table of contents. And I'm just going to kind of scroll through and show you some of the pictures from that event, and invite you to read it at your leisure and familiarize yourself more with the Inspire project. But what we did was we partnered with Inspire and with the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, and we did multiple programs in the area of Clarksville, Tennessee, and Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and trained teachers and trained students. And we actually observed from Austin Peay State University, which is in Clarksville. So this particular image was taken in Hopkinsville by one of my colleagues from NASA. And we also had the NASA video trucks in Hopkinsville and at our observing site at Austin Peay. The Austin Peay project was restricted to students from the Space and Rocket Center who were involved in a program. They are multiple returnees to the Space and Rocket Center to do Space Camp. And the other students, of course, were the Inspire project students, plus the students from the Austin Peay campus itself. And so we had kind of a closed environment, but all of us were on the campus, well, sort of the campus. We were at a working farm, which is part of the agriculture department of Austin Peay State University. And so we actually had classrooms where we did discussions of what to expect and how to observe and safety. And we made observations of cows and crickets and turtles. And we looked at the ionospheric effects from the eclipse, and we just took pictures. We also had part of the balloon project at Austin Peay, and we had multiple balloon launches, and there were 3 organizations represented: Austin Peay, University of Alabama in Huntsville, and one other that I forget. But you can see some of the examples of what we did. Oh, and part of what we did was to launch balloons with hops that later became Eclipse beer. This is the Inspire project site in Guthrie, Kentucky, and it was out in the middle of a soybean field where it actually attracted a lot of attention from locals. So they ended up with a larger crowd than intended. But the farmer's name is Rudy Hall, and when he arrived, he looked at the telescopes that were set up, and he looked through the telescope at the sun, and he turned around to everyone else and he said, "This is my telescope. No one else gets to look through this." He was really excited. That was great. So we also did look for shadow bands. We had students at Austin Peay set their cell phone cameras inside a box with the best camera facing upwards. And then we had a translucent top on that wax paper. And then we tried to photograph, video record the shadow bands as they came over. This was not that successful, but one of the Space Camp students who was in Guthrie, Kentucky with the Inspire project folks actually put her camera, or she videoed shadow bands from just a sheet of paper on the ground. And that video turned out to be pretty good, although we didn't really get any quantitative results from it, unfortunately. But that was pretty, I should also say, the students involved were given the choice of whether to stay at Austin Peay and do their projects there, or whether they wanted to go with the Inspire project group and do projects there. So they decided where they wanted to go based on the program that we had given them in the previous days before the eclipse. So we also did the globe observer and recorded temperature changes. This is from Lusaka, Zambia, one that I did years and years ago. And there were similar differentials in temperature from max to min. And then we just got some pretty pictures. This was the H alpha telescope that we had at Austin P and First Contact. And one of the photographers from Austin P got this one. And I'm just going to scroll down quickly. Oh, yes. Before I leave this, we had a language arts instructor talk to the students about journaling for the eclipse. And this was particularly good because, let me go to, I think it's page 35. Yes, indeed. Isadora Germain. She wrote this after seeing the eclipse. It was an honorable death. The last burst of light escaped from behind the moon, and the sun finally closed its massive eye. My eyes adjusted, and I was on an entirely different planet. An earthquake grew up from my feet into my hands and out through my eyes. The tears formed almost as if they wanted to witness the event for themselves. It felt like being underwater, but at the same time taking my first breath of fresh air. My other senses shut off, opening my eyes to new colors, sensations, and emotions. Left in place of the sun was the deepest shade of black I had ever seen. The halo of light around it throbbed like my heart was racing, bringing new life to the solar system around me. I'd found extraterrestrial life, but not in the way most people would think. For 2 minutes and 39 seconds, the moon was more alive than ever. She had a pulse. She had hands. She was grasping onto our thin atmosphere in a struggle that left rich shades of orange and red all around the horizon. I was witnessing a hello. I was witnessing a goodbye. All of a sudden, the bright and familiar warmth was back. The sun took back its throne, and the earth began to rotate again. This young lady is now in the Air Force Academy and in her 3rd year, I believe, and doing quite well. And if you want to find out more about the students who went on this project, you can actually read in a later edition. Let's see, it is, oh gosh, I can't remember. It came out last year, I believe. So yes, it's Inspire Journal Spring 2021. So we had an incredible time. Students got to paint cows. They got to do the balloon experiments. We got to swelter in the sun. And I think they all had a fantastic experience and would probably do it again. And I'm going to find out if they will. So I'll stop sharing, and I've probably nattered on enough.
Thank you so much, Mitzi. That was fantastic. And I was floored by that description, because that was exactly how it felt for me seeing my first total solar eclipse. So, so well put. And the Inspire Journal is a great resource for those looking for ideas. And that's an excellent segue into a resource that I wanted to put into the chat, which is the ASP conference series. And I've been mentioning this ever since it came out a couple years ago. Let me see if I can get it in my camera so it won't disappear. Well, no, I can't. Anyway, whatever. You know what a book looks like. So if you go to the link that I just put in the chat, all of the articles are available for free. You can access them. You can buy the book if you want to, but you can access each of the articles individually. So if you're interested in other resources, ideas from and experiences from folks from libraries to science centers to schools to community colleges and everybody in between. It's a great resource. And thank you for putting the Inspire Journal link information in the chat as well. So now we want to open it up to everybody. We would love to get questions, comments, ideas of your own. This is being recorded, so people who aren't able to join us are able to use this as a resource after the fact and in their own planning. What would you like to do in 2023 and 2024? What did you do in 2017? What will you never do again? Because maybe it didn't quite go so well. So we'd love to have folks raise their hand. I think I can see that. I don't know if I can see that. And you can also share your video if you want to.
Michelle, Dan Snyderman has his hand up.
Excellent. Good, because I can't see that. So I will need for other people to tell me. So Dan, go for it.
Great. It looks like I'm unable to start my video, but either way. So my first couple thoughts of, coming from a museum perspective. Oh, here we are. With break week possibly being the week before, I'm almost scared of how slammed we're going to get for a longer period of time. All of the museums locally have, started chatting with each other of like, oh dear God, we're all going to be hit hard. And I'm wondering if any of you have started planning on how are we going to keep people not only going for the day, not only 3 days leading to the eclipse, but possibly a full week of continuous swarms.
Yeah,
and then my follow-up question would also be, what are people doing now? I know at the RMSC, we just released a new video. We've been doing stakeholder meetings every now and then, graphics every April 8th, but not as much outside of that, besides making plans.
We were busy for the weekend just prior to the eclipse. It was still during Chicago Public Schools summer break, but several schools had already gone back to school by that point. They'd already been in for 2 or 3 weeks. So it just depends on the school. And then spring breaks in the Chicago area are different based on what county you're in. And so tentatively, Chicago spring break is the week of April 8th, 2024. Tentatively, that could still change. I think my opinion is, and I'll ask Derrick to chime in as well. My opinion is it depends on your messaging. If you want people to come down, they'll come down. If you want to have as your messaging, you can do this where you are. That we had an Eclipse Fest. We were basically saying, yeah, everybody in creation, come on down to the Adler. We didn't focus as much on, you can see this from your house. You can see this from your school. You can walk outside your place of business and there it is. So we might spend a little more effort on see this where you are and don't have quite as many people come down. So Derrick, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, to see this where you are is a theme that I use a lot to get audiences that typically don't come to the museum to understand that they can do science right where they are, particularly astronomy. So it serves a dual purpose for that. It continues to support that theme, but it also keeps people away from us because we realize our facilities can't handle that vast number. So we'll go at it that way.
Thank you. And I see that Dennis has his hand up.
Yeah, I want to probably really what both Michelle and Derrick said. In Seattle, the state of Washington, it's what week is spring break is all over the place. And actually it presents a problem when you really want to try and get a lot of people down for spring break. You have to do it over almost a month in order to get them in. But we worked really hard to work with libraries actually to get the word out about and get glasses out to people and encourage them to view it from wherever they were. I mean, we also had plenty of programming down at the Science Center, but we really emphasized, because we knew even if we got a huge crowd, I mean, I think of Derrick, you said 8,000, if I remember rightly, or maybe we said, when you think about that as a percentage of the Philadelphia area, it's not large, and it's the same thing here. You get a good number, but you're really not reaching a lot of people. So we worked really hard at trying to get out through the libraries, boys and girls clubs, or the community centers, that sort of thing, Rotary. How can we get the information out?
Thanks, Dennis. Something else you might want to consider, Dan, is ticketing. I realize it's not an ideal possibility, and it's hard to police. Your grounds may not be able to support that, meaning anyone can just show up, but you might think about, is there a way to do some sort of ticketing just to reduce the numbers a little? So,
oh, our finance people would love it if we could sell tickets. They would just love that. They would love to have people come through the building just for that reason alone.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
no.
well, actually, they did come in our building, and there were so many, we had to shut it down because we had reached fire code capacity. So they were coming in to see shows because it was air conditioned and it was hot that day. So, yeah. All right. More questions, comments, ideas, anything from the crowd you want to share with the group? Raise your hand if you could. All right. Jay Miller, I see your name first.
Okay, unmuted. Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I what we call the DMV. That's not motor vehicles. It's District, Maryland, Virginia. Okay, start my video. There. I volunteer at the National Air and Space Museum on the Mall. Cat. I don't know what they did in 2017. I know we did pass out several thousand glasses. I was in Casper, Wyoming. And now the problem is that the museum itself is undergoing a huge renovation inside and out. A couple of weeks ago, we actually closed down the observatory, and we've got a 16-inch Bowler and Chivens from Harvard College Observatory. Thank you. But that's not going to be usable for 3 years. But I know what we'll do is set up, probably get more glasses and just have set up viewing on the mall and around the building. And we'll have TVs there for both eclipses. So, I mean, that's the sort of thing we'll do. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. As I said in previous session, I live across the street from a junior high school, or middle school, so I might be there. But that's the sort of thing that we do.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Rick, would you like to make a question or a comment?
Super, yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to share, we have something pretty unique here in New Hampshire. First off, we got the governor to sign a bill into law making Monday, April 8th, 2024 Solar Eclipse Day. So that's been really successful because it's got a lot of the state working with us and stuff like that. That helped out a lot. And people are free to ask me about the language. You could make a proclamation or something like that. It's probably too late to get a bill through, especially the way politics are these days. But another thing that we have is we have something called an Eclipse mobile. It's a 2018 black Dodge Challenger with a full body wrap of a total solar eclipse. And this summer, we hope to take it through northern New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. But next summer, if we get some sponsors and COVID isn't as prevalent as it's been, we hope to go on the road between Rochester, New York, and San Antonio for like 3 months or a little more than 3 months during the summer. So if anyone is planning any events along the path of totality and would like a stop from the Eclipse mobile, let me know. And I have a poster session, New Hampshire Solar Eclipse ambassador program. It has a picture of the Eclipse mobile and stuff. So please look me up in the poster section, and thanks, some great information.
Excellent. Thanks, Rick. And Andy's asking a question. Also, Pamela had mentioned something as well in the chat. People mentioning if you have sunscreen and water available for these really large crowds. And even though it is April, the sun will be lower in the sky. It's still going to be, it's past the equinox. So that is definitely something you need to be mindful of. People spending hours up to 3, 4, or 5 hours outside. So definitely keeping in mind people's needs. But Andy has a question. Closing the museums, do people still have access to bathrooms? Lots of porta potties outside. Definitely, we had lots of porta potties, and that is not a hard thing to do in Chicago in August, because Lollapalooza was just a few weeks before. So there were already lots and lots of porta potties in the area. So getting them in Chicago is easy, but definitely make sure you account for people's needs, for their basic needs: food, shade, bathrooms, all that stuff. So yeah. Adele, I see your name next.
Hi, yes. I'm just wondering if anyone did stuff not on the Ground Center Museum. I know that Mitzi did some stuff offsite in remote places, but I'm wondering more like in cities, if people did stuff at parks, because we don't really have a lot of grounds at our science center. And just wondering if anyone has any experience with offsite stuff, or even like bus trips to Totality, if anyone in this group has done that sort of thing. I'm just curious.
Any of our panelists want to jump in on that one?
I forgot to comment that Austin Peay State University, in addition to the offsite activities, they were using their football field, their sports stadium, and hosted crowds there, and also on the campus itself. So they had students around the campus of Austin Peay State University with telescopes and eclipse classes, and then also inside the sports facility.
I'll bring up one other thing. I was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I was on top of a ski resort. So I don't know if that's been brought up yet, but that's a good thing too. There's a lot of space on the mountain, right? So people can be on the mountain. We were on the top. The only issue is then getting back down. You had to wait for the lift. We actually hiked down. I wouldn't recommend it. Our legs were like, we had a flight to catch, which we ended up missing anyway because of traffic. But yeah, ski resorts might be fun because they do concerts too in the summer, right? So
I think quite a few people who went through 2017 have horror stories to tell about the traffic right afterwards. If you remember nothing from this talk, please remember those of you who are going to be on the path who weren't in 2017. Do not expect, if you have a carnival, just everything going on after Totality, thinking you're going to keep people there and not drive away as soon as Totality ends, it isn't going to work. Don't do it. They're going to leave, and they're all going to leave at the same time. So please get your traffic plans in place for what to do about that, because it is going to be significant. And there were traffic times of getting from Carbondale to Chicago of people taking 14 hours to do that when it normally takes 5. So definitely.
That was my experience. So it took 12 hours to go 4.5.
Wow, amazing. All right, Dennis, I see you next.
So actually this follows up nicely with the last question. The question for me is, how do we, if I think about, Derrick saying 8,000, I don't know the number we had at Pacific Science Center, but we really can only handle a limited number of people at our sites. And I have to admit, we didn't really think, now, how do we deputize, if that's the right word, other groups to do local events? What experience or what are thoughts about how do you get Boy Scout groups? I think that is probably a good example of people who could set up something local in their community, or working with community centers and community center staff. And I'd love to hear what success people had or didn't have with trying to spread out and serve people in a broader area than at their institution?
We definitely did that. We could have done a lot more of it. Worked with some local museums and science centers and other places to just try to spread it out a little bit. Chicago Public Libraries as well. We'd gotten some telescopes into some of the libraries, and they were able to host their own events. Not a lot of them, but some. When you said Boy Scouts, the first thing I thought of is get with the local council to find Boy Scouts who are interested in doing Eagle Scout projects and get them to get their scout troop up and running and educated and everything. You can work with them. So you're working with the train the trainer type model with the with kids. And don't forget the Girl Scouts doing the Gold Award. So that's a suggestion I might have. Derrick,
What did you do? What did you do to get the libraries ready to host that kind of event?
We about a year or two prior, I had gotten a grant to get some 6-inch Dobsonian telescopes with solar filters and other things. And I worked with some Chicago Public Library branches have what are called U-Media centers. And U-Media is kind of a centralized hub place to go where some technology stuff is there. Well, they also have a lot of teens who work with the U-Media centers. So we trained the staff at the library who work with U-Media and with the teens to operate the telescope. And so they felt comfortable with having the telescope out on the day of the eclipse. So it took about a year or two's worth of planning ahead of time. But we were able to get, it's not a lot, about 5 telescopes out into the libraries. So it's better than nothing, that's for sure.
No, that's great.
Derrick?
Derrick, did you want to add?
Yeah, through prior relationships that we had facilitated between amateur astronomers and community-based organizations, those amateurs that did not go to the path of totality, I worked with them to encourage them to work with those community centers that they had worked with before to provide telescopes for neighborhood events. And since those community centers had already been through, a community astronomy program that we put together for them, they had handheld solar viewers, and we provided additional handheld solar viewers for them to distribute to their audiences at those locations. So we sort of did it like that, Dennis, and that worked out pretty good. And in some instances where there weren't astronomers, amateurs for the community centers, sometimes the community center astronomy program facilitator may have had a telescope, or we could provide them with a small 3-inch refractor that they could use for solar projection. And we would help them build, a little sun funnel thing that they could use. And in that way, we sort of further push this idea of doing science in your community, but making the community center the community focus for where you could have an experience or get information about the eclipse. And again, continue to facilitate that relationship between the amateurs and the community centers.
And to riff off of what Derrick just said, raise your hand mentally, all of you at museums who get the phone calls right around or emails right around February, March as people are doing their taxes and they want to donate a telescope to your institution because they want to get the tax deduction. Yeah, get those telescopes, get them now, get them this year, get them next year. You may have to do a little refurbishment. I mean, don't take them all. You don't need the one from 50 years ago, but if it's in good shape, you may just have to provide a solar filter or a sun funnel or something like that for it. Consider that. You may get telescopes dropped in your lap that you can then get out to the community organizations. So that may be a lot less expensive way of getting some telescopes that you may not have to buy yourself, that people will actually bring you. All right, Dan, I see you up next. Please join us.
Yeah, one of the things that it hit me, I should mention sooner, that we just did is, speaking of partnerships, we just partnered with our local tourism bureau, and we just sent out save the date postcards to a couple tens of thousands of people with Tyler's artwork, for which Tyler, I will email you. But we had these go out to our mailing list, both of our mailing list and of the mailing list that our tourism bureau has. So that worked out really well as a partnership. Yes, I'm just answering Derrick's. Yes, that storage problem is so much fun, for which I can't even imagine how we're going to store our solar eclipse glasses. That's a whole nother fun issue. One of the other things we just like released this video saying, hey, save the date. We're kind of like trying to get people excited, even just to put that little bit in the background. And something we're toying around with, we're looking at our own ambassador program, but also doing training for different corporations, for different news. Like we're looking at doing a training specifically for all of our local news groups, our news companies, just so that they don't misrepresent anything. And I think that's one of those great resources that other museums can do, is just act as that hub. And even like a year in advance, talk to them of saying, hey, as a heads up, please don't say these things. I don't want to have to email you about these corrections right afterwards, as I'm sure a number of us have done. And then one other plug for the Rochester Museum and Science Center is this is my personal fun bit about how we've actually been able to get our administration on board early is they created a part-time role, which is my role as the Eclipse Partnership Coordinator, where I am the dedicated person at the museum, so they don't have to throw another staff member or multiple staff members. I just kind of tackle it all. So everything comes in one place, which worked out well.
Thank you so much, Dan. Emily?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm with a small museum in Battle Creek, Michigan, which is known as Cereal City, USA. And oh, you can see me. Okay, good. We're in Cereal City, USA, and we have minimal resources in our small town, in our small museum. So we knew right away we weren't going to have enough glasses. And so right from the get-go, our messaging was surrounding no glasses, no problem, come to us anyway. And we set up a giant assembly line, craft tables everywhere, and invited everybody to bring their cereal boxes. So we are the home of Kellogg and Post Company. Everybody's got cereal boxes at home. Come on out. And they were able to set up their pin type boxes. And so rather than the crowd pictures with all the glasses, we have all the cereal boxes looking up. So that's been a lot of fun. Another thing we were able to do was utilize our student volunteers. They had glasses. We sent them out into the crowds to disperse amongst everybody and share their glasses. So we're pretty confident that everybody at our event, again, we're small. We had about 600-700 people, which was a lot for us, but we're pretty confident that everybody was able to look through glasses because of our student volunteers bouncing around the crowd. So just a couple of things we were able to do in a smaller location without the resources.
And I would add to that, corporate volunteers. We have the hardest time engaging corporate volunteers in a sustained way because we just don't have the paint the playground type projects. But the corporate volunteers were the ones who waded into that 30,000 person or 15,000 person line that stretched a mile long at 9 o'clock in the morning, giving out 2 pairs of glasses per person. They fearlessly waded into that with their little backpacks and stuff. And it was a perfect project for them. So look for those corporate volunteers that you might want to engage.
And it was easy branding, those boxes. So if you have anybody that creates their own packaging already that could make those pin boxes, it was very easy branding as well for our corporate partners.
That's fabulous. Thank you. All right. Have I missed any of the comments or questions or anything in the chat? I've been trying to keep an eye on it. So many great ideas in the chat. Anybody else who wants to join in? We got 5 minutes. Got about 4 minutes before we have to end. So thank you everyone for participating so enthusiastically. All right, I think we're good. Derrick, last words for our, oh, Dan wants to join in. Take
Oh,
away,
I was
Dan.
just going to say, we'll talk heavily more about museums come fall when we have everyone at the Rochester Museum and Science Center. I will say we are hosting an after dark party on one of those nights. So if anyone feels like bringing Halloween costumes, feel free to, just because that time works out perfectly. And we can't wait to have everyone there.
Well,
I'll bring my Harry Potter costume.
we can't wait to be there. And that is a fantastic segue. If I can share my screen in a timely manner. Hang on. There it is. So upcoming AAS Eclipse planning workshops. So October 21st and 22nd, hosted by Dan and the Rochester Museum and Science Center. Exact dates to be determined. We'll be gathering together in a year in Cleveland at the Great Lakes Science Center, fabulous location. October 2023, so just after the October 14th, 2023 annular, where we can all share war stories and get ready for 2024. And looks like we've got a session happening as well at the AAS meeting in New Orleans in January 2024. So many opportunities to come together. And I'm just going to show one quick slide. Then Derrick, Mitzi, Allyson, last words go to you. So give me just a second. So just a reminder, we've got the networking and poster session starting at 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central, and so on. And the end of the workshop is 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. And by the way, it says, but wait, there's more, because I just went backwards in terms of the slides. So anyway, Derrick, last words from you as we wrap up.
Although it may seem obvious when we talk about engaging your institutions early, let me also make sure everybody gets it that you need funding early. You need dollars early to buy the stuff you need to buy. So make sure you get your alliances together with whoever's holding the purse strings and whoever has the power to open that stuff up so you can get what you need. Thanks.
Thanks, Derrick. Allyson?
Yeah, I couldn't echo that anymore. Planning ahead and doing things as early as possible. And I think, just as made by the last Emily, I think saying, even at a small, it doesn't have to be a huge event, even small groups. And sometimes if you could just spread them out. So I think that's great. I'm looking forward to 23, 24.
And Mitzi.
Yeah, well, one of the things I was thinking about as we were talking about what we did in 2017, it was difficult to find volunteers to stay back in Huntsville where it was not going to be a total eclipse. So that's something else to consider, that you need to make sure that you have folks who are willing to stay back and help the population who are not traveling to the path of totality experience the eclipse as well as they can where they are. And talk to as many organizations as you possibly can. I need to begin talking to our boards of education in our local area, even though we're not going to have totality here. I want them to be involved, and I want the students to be able to view the eclipse as safely as they possibly can, even if they're not traveling to it. So yes, I too am looking forward to 2023 and 2024.
And thank you for mentioning the volunteers and getting them on your schedule as soon as you can. Hey, museums and science centers and planetariums, make sure you have a clear understanding with your own staff as to who is expected to be there on the day of, especially if you're off the path, because there may be a few folks who may want to go on vacation, and you may or may not have a plan in place for what to do when you start getting those requests, or people may have been starting to make plans already. So just make sure there's a clear understanding as to who will be expected to be there. Is it all hands on deck? Is it whoever? So just word of advice from an institution that went through that in 2017. So now we know. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Angela or Pamela, was there anything last minute that you wanted to add to our wonderful audience?
I can't see anything. Angela, I think you having the last word after having so many first words makes much
So,
sense.
haven't you all had enough of me yet?
Never.
Never.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. And remember, we still have the gather session, so you can come and see the posters and hang out with people. And, you know, there may be things that you heard that you want to chat with people about. That's where you need to go. And we look forward to seeing some, if not all of you, in Rochester for the next one of these things.
Thank you so much to my panelists, Derrick and Mitzi and Allyson. Thank you to everyone for joining in. Thank you, Dan, for hosting in a few months. We can't wait to see everyone in person, hopefully, fingers crossed. And good luck, everyone. And contact us anytime if you need any further advice or assistance. Glad to help. Thanks a lot.
Michelle, can I ask you a quick question?
You most certainly can.
Is Adler open now? Because my daughter
Yes.
lives in Chicago, and the last 2 times you haven't been open.
No, we were closed for a week shy of 2 years. We reopened March 4th. So we are
Awesome.
open, and every Wednesday night from 4 to 10 p.m. We shifted our hours. We're open at night. Imagine that, a planetarium open at night.
Wow.
And it's Illinois Resident Discount Day. So get your tickets, because Illinois residents, or tell whoever might be in the area, get your Illinois free general admission tickets and come and see us. And if the weather's good, we'll have the observatory open. So you can come see
Well,
me in person.
I'll stop by next time I'm in Chicago, but
Thank
I
you.
don't think I'll have the Eclipse mobile with me. That's the only.
I want to see this thing in person.
Well,
so
come see the poster, and it will be in Rochester. So
That's great. I
it
can't
will
wait
be in
to see it.
Rochester. Take care,
Excellent.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.